We make programs in the context of our lives. That's something that an instructor at U of T told me, and it really stuck. Whatever we do in the gym, it's got to match what we have on our plates, whether on or off the field. So with that being said, here we go. Off-season training. Welcome to the channel. Let's get into it. Day one, it's a lot of plyometrics and lower body exercises. The first two I've used in a previous video. They're great for strengthening and activation. As well, they are unilateral, so it will help correct any imbalances that you might have in your lower body. First, leg raises laying on your side with the leg extended back and internally rotated. I've got the reps, sets, etc. on screen. I'll have that for every exercise, as well as the entire workout for that day at the end of each section. Next is a single leg squat, and with the tempo, the first number is the eccentric motion going downwards, the second number is the pause, and then third number the concentric motion. And you can see in a lot of these exercises I don't necessarily hit the rep scheme that I've set or the tempo, and that's because that's sort of the target that I'm aiming towards. So that's what I'll be building to when I'm in the full swing of it. Next, I'm doing a circuit of plyometrics, starting with a counter movement jump, starting on a box. If you take the box away, then it's a little bit easier. You have less force as you come down and land on the ground. Second in the circuit is some lateral bounding. I want to focus on doing it as fast and explosively as possible eventually, but in the initial stages it might just be getting the movement right, landing correctly, and then you go to as fast and as far as possible and reducing ground contact time. And that's followed up by lateral hops on and off a box. With these, I just sort of casually get back into position between reps and between exercises. As well, I take a really long rest at the end of each set, and that's because they're meant to be done at full speed and power, so you need to be as close to fully rested as possible. Then a standing triple jump, 1 rep on each leg. And last in the circuit, it's a burpee variation that I came up with. Instead of going down forwards on your chest, you go down on your side and alternating right and left side. I just figured it will transfer to goalkeeping. You know, if you make a save, you go to ground and you want to get up quickly to make a second save or keep yourself in the play. Next is a regular barbell squat. It's a 2-second count on the way down, pause at the bottom 1, and 2 on the way back up. That's the tempo that I'll be working my way up towards. Then for some accessory work, I have hip thrusts. I'm using the traditional method, so that means my shins are moving back and forth, meaning I get fuller range of motion and activation of hamstrings as well as glutes. Last exercise, a bit of core work. It's a side plank with a leg raise. Again, I've used this one in a video before, but they're really good for additional challenge in stabilizing your core, as well as strengthening your glute medius, which is important in generating power for sports and physical activity. The first train in the morning gets me to work with an hour and 15 minutes to work out, so I won't really get to stretch right after, but I plan on stretching at some point in the day on the days that I work out, or at least 3 times a week. I'll save that for a separate section in the next video. Day 2 will typically be a Tuesday, and it's upper body pushes. Starting off with face pulls, I typically like to use a cable, but bands are what I have available here. Then for a second warm-up exercise, it's a band external rotation. If I'm being honest, this isn't a great demonstration. You can see my elbow drifts away from my torso a little bit. If you do that, then you're working more on your delts than strengthening your rotator cuff, so that'll be a point of focus for me. Next is a bench press, and aside from keeping my shoulders and my arms in the right position, I also try to make sure I brace my hips and core properly. So that means doing a posterior pelvic tilt, basically tucking your hips towards your core, as well as driving my legs into the ground. Follow that up with overhead press, and it's the same concept of bracing core and hips, so driving legs into the ground and then tucking your hips in. Next, a core exercise. It's a band press with a band tied around a post to the side of you so that you have to resist against rotation, again bracing your core and your hips. And last, for day 2, it's tricep extensions. You want to lean slightly over the bar, and when you're flexing your elbow for the upwards part of the movement, you don't want to go much more than 90 degrees. Again, just making do with what I have. This is actually a lat pull down machine, but hey, using what I've got. Spreadsheet on the screen once more. Day 3, this will fall on a Wednesday. It's primarily upper and lower body pulls. I'm reusing the warm-up exercises from the previous days, so not much to go into here. Deadlift to start, I find my grip strength doesn't keep up with my legs, so I find chalk really helpful. After that, it's pull-ups, and again, chalk really helpful here. First, I'm going to work on increasing the number of reps, and then after that, I have access to the belt so I can add some weight onto it. That'll be followed up with single leg deadlifts, and this is one that I haven't worked on in quite some time, so I'm really gonna take my time with it, get the movement right before I start adding on the weight. Next up, a lateral squat, and it has a unilateral component, and as well in the name, it's got a lateral component to it. Here again, focus on form and just getting it right first, as well as the depth. I try to make sure I have a lot of these lateral focused exercises in my program. Again, I'm a goalkeeper, and moving laterally either direction or shuffling quickly, that's your bread and butter. And lastly, for day 3, a single arm dumbbell row. I find that a good cue to get the form right here is to pull towards the mid to lower third of your torso rather than towards your chest. Actually, that was a lie. One more exercise, Nordic curls. I'm actually very new with these, so really just learning them. But I've heard many a personal trainer and strength and conditioning specialist just sort of rave about these as far as strengthening your hamstrings for injury prevention, as well as increasing your jumping power and your sprint speed. And then I found this variation where you put a band around yourself for assistance, and it makes it so that you are contracting eccentrically on the way down, but then you also have the concentric motion to go back up rather than just falling down and picking yourself back off with your arms. The band should actually be around my chest, but again, learning point for me. And of course, Excel spreadsheet screenshot before we move on. Day 4 is actually a rest day, and it actually works out perfectly that way because, well, for one, I'm just battered after the first 3 days, but I've also purposely done it that way because I don't work on Thursdays, so it's a good time to just relax, chill out, both physically and mentally. Day 5 is more explosive exercises and some lower body work. That being said, I do start with band external rotations. I've just had a shoulder injury in the past, so I just like to get these in a couple times a week. And then second warm-up exercise, once again, single leg squat. Then it's a circuit of banded accelerations as well as a box drill. With the band, you're going 1 rep with each starting foot as well as each direction. So forwards on the right, forward on the left, same thing with a shuffle, and then same thing with a back pedal. And you're going for 3 steps. With the box drill, you're starting in the middle and going to touch each cone, once counterclockwise and then once clockwise, and that counts as 1 set. And like I said, I'm doing it as a circuit, so when I say 3 to 4 minutes rest, that would be after a set of all 4 exercises. After that, I'm pushing a sled, keeping the weight low enough so that I can stay as close to max speed as possible for the entire 2 lengths, which count as 1 set. Next, it's a Bulgarian split squat superset with a walking lunge, and that'll be 3 to 4 reps on each foot and on each exercise. After that, it's banded side steps, and again, same drill from before, tucking in your hips, pushing your knees outwards so that you activate all the right muscles. There's a name for this one, and someone in the comments can remind me. It's a side plank variation where you have one leg on a box or bench and the other leg flexed at the hip. I realized this one was harder for me to do with my right leg on the box, so I guess that shows that my right side adductors were a bit weaker. Eventually it got a little bit easier to do, but that just goes to show again these unilateral exercises helping with any imbalances you might have. And lastly, a farmer's walk to finish. I mentioned my forearms can't really keep up with my lower body in deadlifts, so this should help with that. Right, so that's the main workouts for the week. I'll cut it off there and then we can just do mobility, stretching, and maybe some final thoughts in a part 2. Key point again, programs made in the context of our lives. Like I said before, I'm a bit concerned about time. The train only gets me into the gym at 7:15 at the best. So I've already removed a couple of exercises, and a lot of times I said 3 to 4 sets, but it'll realistically be more like 3. And that's okay, that's the trade-off that I'm making, just so that I can get in all these accessory exercises that transfer well to sport. And of course, it's open to modification. I'll change as I need to or as I see fit. As usual, leave a comment for feedback, like if you liked it, share with someone else if you think they might too, and subscribe so you're in the loop for part 2 of Off-Season Training. See ya.